Welcome to the Build Better Blueprint, the podcast where we discuss the foundations of real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join Christian Cardamone as he shares insights, strategies, and stories that will empower you to level up your business, your lifestyle, and your impact. Let's build a better blueprint for success, starting now.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Christian Cardamone. This is the Build Better Blueprint. Today I've got a real treat for you. I got Mr. Paul LaJoie. Paul is an actual business guru, so listen up. He's got a great story and I'm excited to share it with you. Paul started off his career in 1990 working in the audit department for Coopers & Lybrand and attained his CPA license shortly thereafter. Paul left public accounting in 94 and entered the communication industry, working for several public companies from 94 to 2000 in various accounting and finance roles. In October of 2000, Mr. LaJoie left the telecommunication industry and ventured into small business ownership by purchasing a commercial flooring company that he still owns today. Along the way, Paul has started and bought and sold over 15 companies in the construction, home services, and oil and gas industries. Maxwell Pipeline Services is an oil gas service company that was started from scratch in 2014 with another partner, is still owned and operated by Paul. With Paul being a CPA and accumulating so much knowledge in the small business world, underwriting over 500 businesses over the last 25 years, he started BizBuy Pro in 2023 as a small business acquisition consultancy company to help others interested in acquiring a small business. Paul's first book, Exit Plan, should drop in July 2025. And in 2019, Paul was appointed to the board of directors for Vivos Therapeutics and helped them to their IPO. In July 2021, Paul created the first board of directors for MyRealm, which has a disruptive technology and is currently in the middle of a $250 million capital raise. Paul holds a BBA with a double major in accounting and finance from the University of Notre Dame. And he's been married to his wife, Marley, for 25 years and has 5 children and lives in the Dallas area. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot, but that's Mr. Paul LaJoie for you. Let's jump right in. Hey, Paul LaJoie, thanks for joining us today, man. How the heck are you?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. It's my pleasure, man. You have an incredible bio. I just read it and I had to practice it a couple times because it's robust and impressive and going all the way back to 1990. So I was wondering if you could take a minute here and introduce us to Paul LaJoie and tell us a little bit about you, kind of where you started and your take on this bio that's very impressive, going all the way from being a CPA in the 90s all the way up to now to be a published author.
Man, first thing that came to my mind is I'm super old when you said 1990. That's when
I didn't say it.
college.
I didn't
so that
say
means
it.
I'm really old. Yeah, so I went to University of Notre Dame, got a double major there in accounting and finance, and went into the accounting world, public accounting world, way back when. Got my CPA, worked at Coopers & Lybrand for about 3 years, and then I've dabbled in different, mostly telecom industry for about 10 years in various roles, accounting manager, accounting director, revenue assurance director, et cetera. And then ventured off into the small business world about 2000. Bought a hardwood floor company, commercial flooring company with my brother Bob, and I didn't know crap about hardwood floors or carpeting or tile, but I liked the numbers and obviously didn't know anything about what I was doing. And I thought I was smart. Well, that, being a CPA and being around numbers and auditing financials and looking upside down and backwards on businesses, you would think I would know what I was doing, but no. Literally took me about 10 years to really become comfortable with running a business and stop making mistakes. I sure do wish I had somebody to help me along the way, but again, it's just, you don't know what you don't know. You think you know everything until you figure out you don't. And so that was my first business acquisition. And over the last 25 years, I've bought, sold, started about 15 other small businesses, home services, oil and gas, direct mail marketing. God, where else have I gone? 2 oil and gas companies. So I've just kind of been all over the space, but most of them have been in small business. In home services. And most of them I did with my brother Bob. Now he's retired. He's older than me. I'm the youngest of 8. So he's 10, 12 years older than me. I think he's number 2 on the chain. So he's now retired. I bought him out of all the other businesses. Most of the companies have been acquisitions. I have started 3 or 4 from scratch, and 3 have been failures on the start from scratch, where every one that's been an acquisition has been successful. So for anybody out there that's listening to this about starting a business themselves from scratch, don't do it.
Yeah, that seems to be a big talking point. Like as of lately, it seems like, because as it becomes more and more mainstream for people buying businesses, it's like, just go ahead, find a way to fund it or get the money to buy something existing versus starting from scratch, because you're starting like, you can spend all this time and money trying to front load building a brand, all this stuff, and then go to market and just hope that it works.
Yeah.
Whereas you could buy something, you could analyze 100 different things that are already working and just see which one's the best fit for you. Instead of putting all that seed money into starting, step right into theoretically, cash flow on day one.
Yeah. And especially with the acquisition, if it's been around at least 10 years, it's gone through a recession and survived. Versus a company that's been around 2 or 3 or 4, maybe not have made it through or even seen a downturn. So I always like to say, look at something that's been around at least 10.
Yeah.
So it has some survivability without a doubt. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Family wise, 5 kids, as I said, or maybe didn't say earlier, all of them live locally with me in the Dallas area. I think 3, well, 1 just graduated from college and 2 others still in college and 1 on the way to college and 1 in secondary school going into 8th grade. So that keeps me super busy without a doubt.
I can't imagine. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and then we have a baby coming probably literally in the next 2 weeks. So I'm buckling up, but it looks like it, you give me hope, man. You're wearing it well. You got 5 years.
It's not easy. It is not easy. Oh my gosh. People ask me all the time. It's like, I think my kids are rather successful and really smart. And it's like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. It takes a village without a doubt. It ain't me and my wife doing all of it. So it definitely takes a village. It's very difficult, very time consuming, and in today's society, even harder.
Yeah. I can imagine. Well, the payoff is worth it. It's like, I know that much, at least this early on in the journey. There's nothing quite like being a parent. So it's the best job out there. Pays the most.
Without a doubt.
So let me ask you a couple questions about this BizBuy Pro, because this intrigued me quite a bit. Because I know I listen to a lot of folks that are talking about the silver tsunami of all these small businesses, all these baby boomers that are getting ready to retire.
Yeah.
And there's this huge market share of home service-based businesses that are out there, and folks, mom and pops, they call them, that are just like, their kids maybe don't want to take over the business because they're into something else. And so they're potentially just going to shut the doors, or they do this every day anyway. And in reality, that is absolutely something that could be monetized and disposed of on, like, in a marketplace. So tell me about BizBuy Pro, because it seems like that is your brainchild and is perfectly seated to help really facilitate this silver tsunami and make it into an opportunity for some people.
Yeah, BizBuy Pro kind of just came out of nowhere, probably 2 or 3 years ago. I've always kind of helped friends and families because I've been through it so many times. I've probably looked at 500 different companies, underwritten 500 different companies, looked at P&Ls and stuff like that, and everything's just kind of come second nature to me. And so I kind of helped people along the way. It's kind of like the people that make great cookies. Hey, you should go into business. These are great cookies, right? And you hear that enough times and you just start selling them, right? So it's kind of same thing here and I kind of feel it like, especially as I get a little bit older, it's time to kind of pay it forward a little bit, because I see so many people diving in, leaving W-2 and getting into small businesses for the first time, and they're making massive mistakes. And these are life-altering mistakes that they can make, right? I mean, just you buy a business and you pay 1.5 for it and it's really worth 750, you're going to go bankrupt. And if you got an SBA note, they're going to come get your house. They're going to come get your cars. They're going to take all your money. If you're married, that probably ends in divorce, and it's just bad, right? So I feel like I need to help them not make those mistakes, because it is extremely complex, right? Just from, you think setting up a legal entity is super, super easy, which it is. Just log on to your state comptroller's website or whatever state specific website you guys have. And in 5 minutes, you can have an LLC. And then 5 minutes later, you log into irs.gov and you got an EIN number and you're in business.
You're dangerous.
Yeah, super dangerous. Well, if you set up a single member LLC, you're a disregarded entity in the eyes of the IRS. And what that means is you are taxed at maximum tax rates, both at the federal level, and you're paying 100% self-employment tax on all of your income. Mm-hmm. That's horrible, right? So all you need to do is bring in a son or a friend. Probably can't be a spouse, depending on what state you live in. That is also a disregarded entity. So if you have a son, just bring him a 0.5% owner. And all of a sudden, now you save massively on your taxes, right? And if you have a business making $100,000 a year, and in 10 minutes, I show you how to save $20,000 a year because you set up your legal entity correctly, and that's in perpetuity. That's forever. And in 5-10 years, you've saved enough money to buy another business just because I showed you how to do this, right? And reading financial statements, I mean, it looks Greek to most people, right? But in 5 minutes, I can read a financial statement and tell you how much a company's worth, and I can show you where the red flags are. That's not normal, right? That's hard to do. So again, if you're valuing a business, it's listed for 1.5, and most people are going to pay 1.5, and may not be worth that, right? They may not be paying their employees correctly. They may be paying them all as independent contractors when they're really W-2, right? And you will get caught on that. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? Are they underinsured? Are they overinsured, right? I looked at a business one time that their insurance expense was $10,000, and in 5 minutes I figured out their insurance expense should have been $150,000 a year, right?
Yeah, that affects the bottom line.
They were carrying it was a trash hauling company, and they were carrying pollutants but didn't have pollution insurance, and they're way underinsured on all their trucks. Had very little. They didn't have environmental. They didn't have anything. So there's a company where you thought you were going to make 400 grand, and the day you took over, if you did it correctly, you're making 200 grand.
Yeah, do companies, do you think that they do that? Like, I guess probably sometimes in an unscrupulous manner, just because they want to pump up before they sell to look to someone, to the untrained eye, or just because they don't even know?
I doubt it. I mean, there may be 5% of the people out there that are maybe just pumping and dumping, but most of the people just don't know. I mean, it's the same premise of why I started BizBuy Sell, is they just don't know, right? They've never been educated, right? And it's the same thing here. It's just like, oh, I'm going to save taxes. I don't have to pay payroll taxes, so I'm going to set up all my people as 1099. Oh, that's super smart, right? No, it's not, right? Because they just don't know. So it's not that they're being illegal or unethical or anything like that. They just don't know what the laws are, right? So it's tough, especially with the mom and pops. I mean, when you get into companies that are doing 5 or 10 or 15 or $20 million a year of revenue, it's probably not like that. But doing the mom and pops that are probably $2 or $3 million a year in revenue or less, I mean, the books are a mess. The accounting's a mess, the insurance is a mess, the payroll's a mess, everything's a mess.
And those are the majority of the businesses in our country too. So it seems like there's no shortage of people for you to help. Are you guys geared towards helping under a certain threshold? Just because, like you said, there's above that, maybe they're more sophisticated and they've got resources already, but is that your kind of target audience?
No, I'd say everybody, but I think most of the businesses for sale, I would say 95% of the businesses for sale are probably going to be purchase price valuation of maybe 1.5 million and less. That's going to be most of them. And most of them are going to have a 3 to 4 multiple of what they call owner's discretionary income, which is net income, and you're adding back some owner perks to that. So that's where most of them are going to live.
So tell me industry specific, is that across the board? Because I know I've done business brokerage here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I've been doing that for 21 years now, but only in the food and beverage industry. I can, when I go to value a business, we look at obviously the numbers, the net income for the business, and we'll put that on like a multiplier. Usually it's like sometimes 2 to 3, maybe 3.5. And then we'll look at the value of the goodwill of the establishment and, the fact that people are going to show up to this address regardless because of the name and the location that the owner has built. And then also kind of like the blue sky value of what could be maybe opportunities that the current ownership isn't maximizing. And then also the hard value of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So that's how we kind of like marry all those together to arrive at some market valuation. But that's just with like food and beverage. That's my only experience in that, mainly bars.
Yeah.
I've sold about 28 bars over the course of my career. So not a ton over 21 years, but enough to know that industry pretty well, because I owned a bar for 6 years as well. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth on that. But what I see is the way that these books or numbers are reported is across the board. There's no continuity. It seems like.
No, there's not. And it is very much industry specific. From a valuation perspective, I say there's several things probably at play here from how to value a company. I'm not real familiar with the real estate industry, but everything else is probably going to start at a multiple of 2. So the smaller the company, the lower the multiple.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Because I look at this as like, how easy is this company after you buy it? How easy is the revenue to go to zero? Well, if the revenue is only $500,000, that's super easy to go to zero, right? I'll exaggerate on the other side. If the revenue is $50 million, the likelihood it's going to go to zero is close to zero. right? So there's less risk in buying a bigger company. And in 95% of the companies, the multiple is off of the net income, and that is it. There's no, well, you have 500,000 of inventory and you got $200,000 of trucks. We need to add that value to it. No,
Really?
those things exist because of the company and company only. Now, is there certain circumstances where there's, you're buying a company for $1 million and it has $1 million of inventory? Okay, we can add something in for inventory.
Yeah.
But most companies that you're buying for $1 million probably has $50,000 to $100,000 in inventory, and that's just part of the purchase price. You're not doing a multiple plus. That's I'm saying it's not unheard of, but again, 95% of the time, it's just a multiple of EBITDA. That is it. And again, the bigger the company, the higher the multiple.
Mm-hmm.
So a company that makes $3 million a year in profit, I mean, you may have a 6 or a 7 multiple. Industries is going to be a little bit different. We love home services, and so does everybody else right now.
Mm-hmm.
So where companies 5 or 6 years ago in the home service, you might be able to get from 2.5 to 3.5. It's maybe 3.5 to 5 now. Wow. In that space, because I think a lot of people are really interested in that. So it is industry specific, and also too, it's do they have 5 customers or do they have 500? Right. So again, if you have 5 customers, you may lose 2 of them. You may lose 40% of your business overnight. Yeah. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. They've been around 2 years. They've been around 20.
Yeah. What are those multiples that are higher? Is that like a private equity buyer, or is that like a small business, like a person?
That's an individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then are the private equity guys paying even more than that if they're coming in?
Private equity like to overpay, but they normally don't come down into the purchase price valuations, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. So you're normally not competing against that. Private equity normally didn't touch anything under a $10 million valuation until a few years ago, but they may go down to 5 or maybe even a $3 million valuation now. Mm-hmm. So normally you're not competing against those guys.
Yeah, because that's a whole different world.
Yeah.
It was eye-opening for me when I learned how the more that the business makes, the higher the multiple, because it seems like it's like compounding valuation. Every time you hit a different tier of income, you suddenly become worth that much more.
Yeah.
It's a crazy concept to me. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, I really think about when you think about and I feel like the small business space has really just come into play in the last 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I own commercial real estate as well. So I'm not bashing commercial real estate. I own it. So I think small business acquisition and small business ownership is the real estate of the last 30 years ago. So where people got per annum returns of 20, 30, 40% in real estate over the last 20 or 30 years, that is gone. And it is gone forever, in my opinion. Real estate still needs to be a part of your portfolio, but you're going to be getting a 6 to maybe a 12% return on real estate going forward. So again, have that part of your pie, but the 20, 30, 40% per annum returns, that's in small business.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's crazy though. But I agree with you 100%. I think that I'm so bullish on real estate, always have been and will continue to be. But the more I learn about this subject matter, businesses that generate income, they can produce returns that are head and shoulders above real estate, because real estate tends to be fixed. You'll have market fluctuations that'll ride up and down within a couple points, but a business can have exponential growth depending on how it's being operated. And that just to me is exciting. And I think it's becoming more like mainstream right now. And I don't know, what do you attribute that to? Is it just there's influencers that are like talking about it, or it's more because of this kind of quote silver tsunami, or is it just timing randomly?
Man, I think it's a confluence. It's just like a perfect storm, right? There's 10,000 baby boomers that are retiring on a daily basis. And a lot of these guys, highly emotional, by the way, on selling these things. Yeah, a lot of these guys started these things from scratch 40 years ago. And everybody that works there, they're friends. They went to their weddings. They went to their kids' bar mitzvahs, right? I mean, it's just highly emotional, right? And yeah, as you said earlier, as we were starting this, is a lot of the kids don't want to take this stuff over, and they're unprepared to sell these things. But so there's that part of it is everybody's retiring and selling these things, and I think other people are looking for alternatives to real estate because it's just been so hard the last 2 or 3 years. And then everybody just, I think, didn't really know they existed.
I think you're right.
Right.
It's almost like a awareness type of situation where it's just all of a sudden it's like we were talking offline with our group. There's things out there that you don't even know people are doing, and they're doing really well at it, and it's a humongous industry. Just because you didn't know about it doesn't mean it's not happening.
I completely agree. It's just I'm still mind-boggling and baffled that I'm like, are you serious? You make money doing that? And it's like, what is this, right? So I own an oil and gas company, that one of my successful ones that I started from scratch with another partner, and we're in the oil field work, and we do pipeline maintenance. Okay, these are all underground, what I call transportation pipelines for carrying a commodity from point A to point B. Could be a 500-mile pipeline, all underground. Okay. So just like a pipe inside your house gets built up and just gunk on the inside of it, right? Those pipelines do the exact same thing, right? So they actually call them pigs, Pigs, because it's a dirty job.
Yeah, it's
They
appropriately
put a
named.
pig inside the pipeline and
Yeah.
it goes from point A to point B, right? And there's cleaning tools, right? So it'll clean that junk off, right? But there's also smart tools or smart pigs that have sensors and magnets that can read and record a crack in a weld joint before anybody knows about it, that can dig up that part of the pipeline, re-weld it before it becomes an environmental issue.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, didn't even know this existed.
That's
So
what
all
your
we
company
do
does?
is we survey the pipeline, which again is below ground, which is kind of hard to do. And then once they stick those pigs in the pipeline, we're above ground on the right of way and we track it, which again
Okay.
is very difficult to do. Because if the pig gets stuck, you got to know where it is.
I can't.
Because if it gets
I'm not.
stuck and they got to dig it out, you
Yeah.
better be right
You gotta
on where
dig
it is, because a lot of times the pipeline will travel underneath like an apartment complex. And if you're digging up someone's parking lot in an apartment complex, you better be right. It better not be a half mile down the road. They're going to be really mad. So
Yeah.
that's that industry, right? It's like, who knows that existed? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But
So you got.
there's thousands of stuff like that out there. That what people are making money at that? It's crazy.
That sounds like that's an expensive service. I'm just guessing, but it's also amazing that you get to dig the pig for a living.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the other thing too. And I'm glad you kind of brought that up. Is a lot of people, there's a lot of mental things you got to overcome when you buy a business, right? So let's say that you are highly professional. You're an attorney, you're a doctor, you're a CPA, architect, whatever, and you live that lifestyle. You drive a nice car and you go to nice parties and you dress up nice and all that sort of stuff, right? You got to get over that mindset. Whatever makes you money, right? Right? You want to be on a trash service? That's not too sexy, but man, if it makes $1 million a year, I'm fine with that, right? But a lot of people have that mental block, right? Because you're going to those same dinner parties. You're going to tell somebody you're a trash man.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I'd be a-okay with that. I would. Yeah. I mean, so let me ask you this: in your experience, I mean, you've seen. I wouldn't say you've seen it all, because it looks like there's plenty more out there. But what are the top couple industries that you see that are like the sleepers, that are some of the highest producing on paper that you've seen, that are maybe unlikely or likely, even, for that matter?
We talked about it numerous times already. Home services is where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why the multiples have gone up. But
what's an example of those for those who don't know? What is an example of home services?
Home services. I mean, golly, I think I wrote down the other day. I wrote about 40 of them: HVAC, plumbing, electrical, flooring services, which I own, carpet cleaning, pest control, landscaping, tree service, roofing, painting. I mean, anything that or person that you would ever call to come to your house is home services for anything. Okay. Right. And again, there's about 40 or 50 of them that I kind of came up with. And I just love the space, because who knows where artificial intelligence is going to take us in the next 5 years. I mean, you're hearing that industries like accounting and financial analysts and architects and lawyers and all that stuff isn't going to be the same in 5 years. Right. Well, you need a human to show up to fix your air conditioner. So that's not going to change. And the other thing too, they're somewhat recession proof, right? If we're in a bad economy and your air conditioning goes out, you're not going to get it fixed.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
Yeah. I think we've seen that even through the pandemic. It's like, basically, we've had a couple of recessions. We've had a freaking pandemic, which was unprecedented, like anything we've ever seen. And markets go up and down, but the home services have continued to they're just like the back of America, like blue collar boys. They're what keep the lights on, know, and there's always going to be a need for
the other thing too, why I love home services, is because housing has gotten so expensive that nobody moves anymore. So you're almost stuck in your house, right? Because maybe you're one of the 30% of the people in the United States that has a mortgage under 3%, and you ain't moving. So you're stuck, right? So instead of moving and upgrading, you're going to stay and remodel. So I think that is a wave of the future as well. So you're gonna fix up where you're living now versus moving somewhere else. So I think is another reason to love the home service industry as well. And then even buy multiple home service companies, right? If you want to do a roll up, right? I mean, get a HVAC company, plumbing and electrician, and cross sell, right? So I think that's a great option as well too.
So tell me this, how does the average bear do that? Like if I'm like listening to you, I'm like, dude, Paul, he knows what he's talking about. My dad's brother owns a plumbing company, my uncle, and he doesn't want to do anything. I want to buy it from him. Walk us through what kind of advice you would give to somebody who's looking at buying a business, or maybe has an opportunity, or maybe stumbles into one. What are some of the steps that they would take to start vetting this process and figuring out where to get financing and what the next steps are?
Right. A couple different answers there. If they stumble across one, that's answer number one, versus somebody just, I want to buy a business. They don't have one in front of them. What do they do? I would say three, you need to start networking with everybody that you know, from church to your CPAs, all your friends and family and all that sort of stuff, and let people know that you're looking, because somebody knows. Right. And those are the best spots. We call those off market, right? You're no longer competing against somebody else. So that's most ideal. Okay. And you will find somebody. It may take you 12 months, 18 months. You will find somebody that way if you get the word out. Okay. The most competitive one, but good learning experiences, is just call your local business brokers. If you're in a big city, there's hundreds of them. Right. And just, what do they got listed for sale, and start looking, right? I don't care if you're interested in or not. Sign the non-disclosure agreement and get the offering memorandum. It's going to have financial statements and a history and inventory and asset numbers and all that sort of stuff, and get it and just start looking, right? You got to start becoming familiar with these things. So those are local business brokers, and there's a bunch of online national portals as well that you can log on to and see, and you can filter it out by size and industry and number of employees and how much money they make and all this sort of stuff. You can filter it all the way. Just start doing it, right? Just start doing it. Answer two is, if you stumble across something off market, right? You find somebody in your network that, hey, my dad's selling his fence company. Get in front of them. And again, remember that it's highly emotional for that person. Don't go in there and start talking numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
become friends with them, right? If they're married, take their spouse out. Talk about their kids. Talk about what they're going to do in retirement. Find some commonality, right? He likes hunting, you like hunting. Now you start talking about hunting, and after 3 or 4 of those meetings, you're friends. Now he's going to open up to you, right? Because again, it's highly emotional sell. And he doesn't want to sell just based off of numbers. He wants to sell to somebody that's going to take over his baby.
I've seen that in real time, because it's a lot of times there's different kinds of sellers. Some people, it's a hot potato. They just want out. They don't care. But some people, like you're saying, to your point, it's their legacy. And if it's their last name, or if it's something that they've built for 40 years, all the money in the world isn't going to replace how they feel if you take it and run it into the ground, or you get a bad reputation from it. So they want to, you got to have a golden handoff and they want to trust you to take it and to continue to, because you're right, it is like a child. It's crazy when you incorporate that level of emotional connectivity into a business transaction. It can work for you or against you, depending on how delicate of a player you are, I think.
Yeah. And once you start the process, and once you find a company that you like, that's when it's important to find somebody to help you, some type of consultant, because just valuing the business, right, is really step 2 after you've kind of gone through the non-disclosure and things like that. And if you don't value that business right, and you're starting off on the wrong foot, from setting up your legal entity to doing due diligence. Does that anybody on this listening to this podcast know how to do a quality of revenue test, right? Or quality of earnings is what they also call it as well. That's extremely important, right? To kind of match up the detail to what's being shown on the financial statement. Do the financial statements match the tax return, et cetera? And then again, just setting up payroll and setting up your sales tax, just kind of setting up everything correctly, all the contracts and the purchase agreement and the non-compete agreements, all that stuff is super important to do that. And again, really important to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, and hire the people to replace what you're not good at. So you need to do some soul searching during this process. I'm horrible at marketing, and I haven't learned anything in 25 years. You'd think I'd know something about marketing now. I think I'm dumber about marketing now than I was 25 years ago. So I don't do marketing. I hire people to do the marketing, the specialists, right? And and I worry about what I am good at and let other people fill in those goals, fill in the gaps. So that's super important as well. I will mention about the good thing, or actually the great thing about finding off market deals. While it takes a little bit longer because a lot of times the books are a mess, but the financing options on an off market deal are massively better, right? You find something on market, one, you're competing with 100 other people, so you're not going to get a good price.
Yeah.
And then therefore you're going to be lucky to get any owner financing at all. I mean, most deals on market, you're going to put 10% down. The seller's going to carry 10% as a note, and you're going to go get an SBA note for the other 80%. That's going to be a typical purchase equation from a financing perspective. With off-market deals, a lot of them are elderly, 65, they're retiring, right? And they don't necessarily need the money. So you're more likely to convince those guys maybe to do a 20 or 30 or 40 or 50% seller financing under those circumstances. Because what you don't know too, or what the seller doesn't know, is massive tax benefits to do an installment sale on their side. They don't know that. And I'd say 99% of the other people in the world don't know that as well. So if you're buying a company for $1 million and it's all SBA financed and they're getting a check for $1 million, that is $1 million worth of income. They're paying probably 40% tax on.
Yeah. How do they establish a basis? Like with real estate, we know what the basis is because it's what you bought it for and what you put into it. But how do you establish a basis for a business if you started it?
The basis is zero.
Really?
So 1 million of that is going to be income.
That's great. So that's massive exposure. So you're right. So seller financing sometimes is probably the only way for them to really enjoy the benefit of all their.
So if you do seller financing and let's say it's a 10-year term, in essence, that's an installment sale. So they're going to be being taxed on $100,000 per year for the next 10 years. Maybe that puts them in the 20% tax bracket. So instead of paying $400,000 in taxes up front, now they're paying $20,000 a year for a total of $200,000. So they save $200,000. So they don't know that. Their CPA knows it, but they're not even going to tell them about it because the seller's not asking questions. They don't understand what they don't know.
They wouldn't find out till they turn in this closing statement at the end of the year and their accountant goes, okay, well now you owe $400 since you sold the business.
And it's too late.
Yeah.
So you can sell them on that if you know that, right? And then, man, you may be one of the few that gets away with a 80 or 90 or 100% seller financing. By the way, don't get too excited. I'm going to nip that's in the bud right now. There's a lot of people out there that, oh man, I'll show you how to do 100% seller financing. Is it out there? Yeah. If you go into this thinking you're going to find it, man, you're going to get super frustrated.
Yeah.
It's super frustrated. Just the same pundits out there tell you that you need to find a business that's absentee ownership. Man, is it out there? Yeah, it is. Good luck finding it. And if you find one, let me know. I want to be a partner in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the other thing I will say is you can grow into absentee ownership. Okay. It ain't going to be your first one, right? Absentee ownership, if it's truly absentee ownership, if you're working 2, 3, 4 hours a week into it, the people will steal from you 100% of the time. 100% of the time. And if this is your first business, without a doubt, are they going to steal from you? Because they will. So if it's your first time, buy the business, work in it continuously, and maybe by year 3 or 4, you can roll back to 10 or 15 hours a week. But if you're absent, it's going to be bad.
Is that even with if you were to maybe install like a trusted manager or someone or an operator, or are you saying regardless, if you buy a business, it's imperative that you get in and stay in the trenches for an initial period of time to get the lay of the land?
Even if you hire somebody, if you hire your best friend or hire your brother to run the business, life events happen that force people to do things they normally wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Right? So most people aren't going to steal, but if there's $50 sitting on the table, they're going to take it. Yep. So sometimes there's just life events or there's temptation that's put in, right? So your best friend, I don't know, started doing drugs or got divorced. And all of a sudden their monetary situation changes and they're pissed that here's your friend, you're making $500,000 a year and you're only paying them $100,000. Well, screw it. I work more than him. I'm going to start taking some stuff on the side. Stuff happens.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen.
If you roll back, you better be working at least 10 to 15 hours a week. You better be reading the financial statements. You better be the one signing the checks. So, and hey, there's nothing wrong with working 10 hours a week, making $500,000 a year.
Yeah, man. Sign me up. I'm into that.
Exactly. But maybe that's year 3 or 4 after your first acquisition. Yeah.
So your book, Exit Plan, is this kind of geared towards, is it like Tell me about that, a handbook for someone to leave a W-2 and step into the world of business ownership.
It is definitely. So it's written for the first timer. Mm-hmm. Can somebody that's been in business ownership pull a couple nuggets out here or there? Yeah, because I talk about some sophisticated tax strategies in there, like bringing your kids into the business and paying them, and it's $13,000 a year, 100% tax free for the individual and for the business. Putting your kids on a board of directors. Mm-hmm. Of course, they have to be of age. Yeah. They can't be 1 and 3 years old. But if they're of age, if they're 13, 15, and 17, they're on your board of directors, and all of a sudden now your board of directors meetings is in Mexico, and it's 100% vacation paid off for free, deductible. Yeah. Right. So there's some sophisticated stuff in there, even for the seasoned business owner that could learn from the taxing perspective. But it's mainly written for somebody leaving the W-2 that don't know what they're doing. It's very easy to read. It's probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours. Mm-hmm. It's very repetitive because you are drinking through a fire hose. So something I say in the first chapter, which may have just gone over your head, I say again in the third chapter, and I say again in the 9th chapter to make sure I'm driving home the point that you understand what I'm talking about. And it's a great first start. I mean, read it. Super simple. And my goal is not for you to become a subject matter expert, but to understand just enough so you can ask intelligent questions of those people that hired to fill in for the gap of the areas that you don't understand. So you go into your CPA. Hey, I was reading about this. How do I bring my kids into being on the board of directors? How do I set up my legal entity properly? What's the best and most tax advantageous way to pay myself? Mm-hmm. Right? You just don't want to overpay yourself, paying too many taxes on it. You set up a small salary that is commensurate with the work you're doing, and the rest are going to be profit distributions, which are going to be free from self-employment tax under most circumstances, right? So it's just, you're not going to do this yourself. You're asking the questions, mm-hmm. and that subject matter expert's going to take it there, right? So just get you a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of thinking is what the goal of that book is.
I think that's so important too, because you have to like speak the language at a minimum. You've got to at least know what's going on around you to be like a prudent business owner and know these things. My skill set is in, real estate, and so I've learned so much about business acquisition through some of the deals I've done, and the things that and the things that you don't know. It's just like no one's going to do it for you. It's incumbent on you to go out and really learn how to do this stuff. So I can't wait to take a look at the book and give it a read. You said it'll be out in July?
Yeah, we'll do a push on July 3rd. It is done, but we're just going to do a push to become a bestseller on July 3rd. So that's when it'll be out. I'll flank everybody and send out a mass email on when that's coming out. So
awesome, man. That's great. And so in the meantime, if folks want to find you, where can they reach out to you and learn about BizBuy Pro and get a copy of the book? Where can folks find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, good. The website's up and running, bizbuypro.com. And then email is paul@bizbuypro.
Okay.
As well. So, and all that stuff comes directly to me, and I'll call you if you need any help in any form or fashion. If you just want me to help you find a company, I can just do that and I can hand it off to you. You want me to take you from cradle to grave. You want me to be a part owner in your business as well. That's fine. I'll do that as well. So then you kind of get me for free going forward if I'm a part owner. So I'm willing to do that as well for the right business and the right business owner.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you take an equity position in exchange for your services and expertise?
Yep.
That sounds like that's something that could be, some folks should listen up and take you up on that.
Yeah, especially for first time, because it's super scary.
Yeah.
It's funny because I went into the first business and I was one of those guys. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I wasn't scared at all. Mm-hmm. But now when I buy a business, I'm super scared. 25 years later, because I know all these things now, that I know all the things that can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So it should be super scary buying a business.
Yeah.
But if you got somebody in your corner that has done it a gazillion times, I mean, that's just so relaxing. I mean, even just hey, Paul, let's say I'm a 10% owner. Hey, I need to fire the manager. What paperwork should I have in the file? How do I do this? What do I say? What do I not say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Is it a firing or is it a layoff? Right? Because those are two different things. It's a layoff, then it's not affecting your state unemployment rate. Mm-hmm. Right? So you start laying off and firing a bunch of people, then that rate goes from 1% to 3% on your payroll, and that adds up very quickly. So to do this correctly the right way. So it just gives you some comfort that somebody's been there through it before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They know where to
Because
step.
it is really scary being out there by yourself, because you are literally wearing 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you know what, man? Fortune favors the bold. So that's why people do it, because when it does work, it's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, it is true. Man, I recommend it to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend it to everybody, especially as you get older, right? I mean, I just talked to a friend of mine who is my age, 57, and he's been in sales for a software company, probably makes $250,000, $300,000 a year. And he just went through a corporate reorg, and they like to let go of all the high paid people. So there's not too many jobs, especially at age 57, where he can restart and make that type of money. Or if he is, it's going to take him 3, 4, 5 years to get there, versus, hey, you got $1 million saved up, or $500,000 saved up, or $200,000 saved up. Go buy a business, and in day one, you're making $300,000 a year. So I just had that conversation with him last week. So he's going to buy a small business. I'm going to help him do that. So that is super scary. As you go up the corporate ladder, there's only so many spots of people making a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I think this book is going to be very well received, and I think it's coming at a great time. I look forward to reading it, just because this is something, as far as diversification goes, I have a lot of interest in. I've owned a couple of businesses, and I feel like if I were to do it again now, I own my property management company now and my real estate brokerage. But if I was to go and acquire a business, there's so much more that I know now. I feel like I could do such a better job on it. And so there's more opportunity, and it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, it really is. In fact, I've gotten in my ways where, I own the 2 businesses, own some real estate, and I'm starting a small business consultancy company. And I feel like I've gotten the itch where I need to buy some more businesses, because I've been doing this, and I'm like, man, this is exciting.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I need to buy some more businesses myself. So I'm super excited about it as well.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, Paul, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I think you brought a lot of value to my audience, and I'm very grateful. Folks, reach out to Paul, bizbuypro.com, and make sure you get a copy of his book, Exit Plan. We'll put a link in the show notes when it comes out. And thanks for tuning in. This has been the Build Better Blueprint. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
That's it, folks. That's our show. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with the latest episodes. Feel free to share with your friends and keep up the great work. You are on the right path. See you at the top.